Does Cyrus die in Insidious? Out of the further? His fate explained. Warning: major spoilers. Cyrus Lam does not permanently die in Insidious. Out of the further. He is defeated by Gemma and dragged back into the further, where his own followers turn against him. However, the post-credit scene reveals that Cyrus is still conscious and trapped inside the further, where he is tortured by the dead dentist. His fate is therefore much worse than a simple death. So, does Cyrus actually die in Insidious? Out of the further? The short answer is no, at least not in the normal sense. Cyrus is already a dead person for much of the movie. His existence is tied to the further, the supernatural realm inhabited by spirits and entities. That means defeating him doesn't work the same way as killing a living human. And that's exactly what happens during the ending. Cyrus appears to be destroyed. His followers turn against him. He's subjected to horrific punishment. But the post-credit scene reveals that he is still there. He's trapped. He's suffering. And he's very much aware of what's happening to him. Who is Cyrus? Cyrus Lam is the main villain of Insidious. Out of the further. Unlike many of the franchise's supernatural villains, Cyrus wasn't originally a demon. He was once a human cult leader obsessed with defeating death. Cyrus believed that death wasn't the end of existence. He became convinced that the further represented another state of existence and that it was possible to cross the barrier separating the living from the dead. But Cyrus' obsession eventually led him to his own death. Instead of escaping mortality, he found himself trapped in the further. And that's where his obsession became even more dangerous. He wanted to return. He wanted to escape. And he was willing to use anyone necessary to accomplish it. Why does Cyrus need Gemma? Cyrus eventually discovers that Gemma has an extremely unusual connection to the further. Gemma isn't simply someone who can enter the supernatural realm. She possesses a rare ability that allows her to bring things from the further into the physical world. This makes her incredibly valuable to Cyrus. For years, he's been looking for a way to cross back into the world of the living. Gemma essentially represents the doorway he's been searching for. If he can manipulate her ability, Cyrus believes he can finally escape the further. And he isn't planning to return alone. He wants to bring other spirits and followers with him. What happens to Cyrus in the finale? Cyrus' plan initially appears to work. He manages to exploit Gemma's connection to the further and begins pushing the boundary between the two worlds. But Gemma eventually realizes something important. Her ability works in both directions. If she can bring things out of the further, she can also send them back. That's the key to defeating Cyrus. Instead of allowing him to establish a permanent connection with the living world, Gemma reverses the process. She sends Cyrus and the other supernatural entities back into the further. But Gemma goes even further. She uses her power to transport her entire house into the further. That effectively traps the supernatural forces inside their own realm. Cyrus has lost. The doorway he desperately wanted has been closed. Do Cyrus' followers kill him? After Gemma defeats Cyrus, his own followers become furious. Cyrus had promised them freedom. He told them that he could help them escape the further. But instead, they're back where they started. They realize that Cyrus has failed, and they turn against him. Cyrus is attacked and appears to be destroyed. For a normal human character, this would probably be the end. But Cyrus isn't a normal human anymore. He's a spirit existing within the further. And the movie establishes that supernatural beings don't necessarily follow the same rules of life and death. That's why his apparent death isn't the end of his story. So, what happens to Cyrus after that? The answer comes in the post-credit scene. Cyrus is still alive, or, more accurately, still existing as a supernatural entity. He's been captured. And he's strapped into the chair belonging to the dead dentist. The dead dentist then begins torturing him. The scene deliberately echoes the dental horror associated with Gemma earlier in the movie. But this time, Cyrus is the victim. He has no control. He can't escape. And nobody is coming to rescue him. Why is the dead dentist torturing him? There's a poetic reason for this. Cyrus spent the movie manipulating other people. He treated Gemma and Maya as tools. He used his followers. He believed he could control the supernatural world. He wanted to control the boundary between life and death. But after Gemma defeats him, he loses all control. Now he's the helpless one. The dead dentist represents the complete reversal of Cyrus' position. Earlier, Cyrus could manipulate supernatural entities. Now those entities can do whatever they want to him. He has become a prisoner. What does Keyface have to do with it? The post-credit sequence also brings back Keyface, one of the recognizable demons from the Insidious franchise. Keyface is associated with the Red Door, which represents a gateway between the further and the living world. At the end of the sequence, Keyface closes and locks the Red Door. This is an important visual metaphor. Cyrus spent the entire movie trying to open the door. He wanted to escape the further. He wanted to bring spirits into the physical world. But now the door is locked behind him. He is trapped. The gateway he desperately wanted has become his prison. Is Cyrus dead or alive? This depends on how we define death in the Insidious universe. Cyrus is technically already dead as a human being. His physical body is no longer the important part of his existence. His consciousness continues inside the further. So when his followers attack him, they're not necessarily killing him permanently. They're destroying or incapacitating his supernatural form. The post-credit scene proves that Cyrus' consciousness remains. So the most accurate answer is, Cyrus is dead as a human, but he is not gone as a spirit. He continues to exist in the further. And now he's trapped there. Is his fate worse than death? Arguably, yes. That's one of the main points of his ending. Cyrus spent his entire life obsessed with defeating death. He couldn't accept the idea that his existence would end. He wanted immortality. He wanted access to the world of the living. And he believed that escaping the further would give him the freedom he wanted. Instead, he gets the exact opposite. He's trapped in the further. He's surrounded by supernatural entities. His followers have abandoned him, and he's being tortured. So Cyrus doesn't get the peaceful death he might have feared. He gets eternal existence without freedom. That's much more fitting for his character. Could Cyrus return in another movie? The ending leaves that possibility open. Because Cyrus is still existing inside the further, the filmmakers haven't completely eliminated the character. If a future Insidious movie wanted to bring him back, the story could explain how he escaped. The franchise has repeatedly established that spirits can move between worlds under the right circumstances, and Gemma's unique abilities could potentially become relevant again. However, the post-credits scene doesn't directly confirm that Cyrus will return. For now, his storyline ends with him trapped. Why doesn't Gemma destroy Cyrus completely? That's another interesting question. Gemma could potentially have tried to destroy Cyrus. But her ability isn't necessarily about destroying supernatural beings. It's about moving things between worlds. Her solution is therefore more practical. She sends Cyrus back to the place where he belongs, the further, and then the other entities deal with him. This also reinforces Gemma's character. She's not becoming another supernatural killer. She's learning how to control her ability and protect her family. Cyrus, meanwhile, is defeated by his own obsession. What does Cyrus' ending mean? Cyrus' story is ultimately about the danger of refusing to accept death. He spent his life trying to prove that death could be defeated. But when he actually died, he discovered that the afterlife wasn't the freedom he imagined. Instead of accepting that reality, he tried to force his way back. That obsession turned him into a villain. Gemma represents the opposite philosophy. She isn't trying to conquer death. She's trying to protect the people she loves. Her power is motivated by love. Cyrus' power is motivated by fear. And that's why he ultimately fails. Final answer. So, does Cyrus die in Insidious? Out of the further? Not permanently. Cyrus is already a dead human being when the main story takes place, but his spirit continues to exist within the further. Gemma eventually defeats him by using her supernatural ability to send Cyrus and the other entities back into the further. She even transports her entire house into the supernatural realm, effectively trapping them there. Cyrus' followers then turn against him after realizing that he has failed to give them the escape he promised. They attack him, and it initially appears that Cyrus has been destroyed. But the post-credits scene changes everything. Cyrus is still conscious. He's strapped into the dead dentist's chair and subjected to supernatural torture. Then Keyface appears and locks the red door, reinforcing the fact that Cyrus is now trapped inside the further. So Cyrus doesn't get the death he spent his entire life trying to escape. Instead, he gets something arguably worse. He remains alive as a spirit, but he has lost his freedom. He can't return to the world of the living. His followers have abandoned him, and the supernatural entities he once tried to control are now tormenting him. That's the ultimate irony of Cyrus' story. He wanted to defeat death. He wanted to escape the further. He wanted to control the boundary between the living and the dead. But in the end, the further controls him. And the locked red door makes the message unmistakable. Cyrus wanted out. Now he's trapped inside.